What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking the age-old question of quarterbacks as they pertain for fantasy football. Everything from how early you should draft them, what that means for the rest of your team, the benefits, the disadvantages to drafting a quarterback early, how early is too early. We're going to be looking at some rankings as well. And then also, we're going to throw out some potential sleepers at the position that you guys could be targeting. So it's going to be a very informative episode. Definitely recommend you guys tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comments section. Are you somebody that drafts a quarterback early? Yes or no? What are some quarterbacks that you guys like this season, along with any other questions you guys might have? I'll do my best to answer them all. And lastly, make sure to check out the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide, available for purchase. Has everything you can want at a great value. Top 150 overall player rankings in standard and PPR formats, individual player bios, tiers, projections, along with general fantasy advice. Details in the description. But with that being said, let's get into it. And as you can see, we have got the ADP list here per Fantasy Pros for the quarterback position pulled up. So basically, this shows us their overall rankings, where they are ranked individually across some of the big platforms, and again, where they're going, which really is what we want to focus on here. Now, it doesn't show their tiers, but it's still pretty much ranked as it would be. I can kind of tell you guys where the tiers start, where they begin, but that's not really too important for this video. Let's start with, right now here, the number one guy on this list. Naturally, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. As you can see, he's ranked 25th overall, the number one quarterback, and he is usually the top quarterback being drafted really across all formats. And it makes sense. Look, these last 2 years, the number one guy for fantasy football scoring. He's been trending in this direction. He's got weapons. He's in a good offense. He's improving. He's got a great combination of passing yard upside along with rushing yard upside, along with rushing touchdown upside, maybe more so than Mahomes and like Lamar Jackson, if you consider the passing yards as well. He's a young, promising guy. He's been proving it the last couple of years. He's just continued to improve and improve. So naturally, he is coming in at the number one spot. And anytime you finish at the number one spot the year prior, typically that's going to mean you're drafted pretty highly afterwards. So now, you look at these rankings, he's ranked 25th overall. So what does that more or less translate to? That translates into an early third round selection in drafts. Typically, that's, across all the mocks that we've done, pretty accurate. He is more than likely 90% of the time going to be the first quarterback drafted somewhere in the third round. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I think in order to really get the most out of this video, out of the advice that I have and, my 2 cents about it, is you need to understand what you're giving up when you're drafting a quarterback early and whether it's worth it or not. And just kind of understanding the positional hierarchy for fantasy football. And if you're newer to fantasy football, basically what I mean to that is, which positions are the most important ones. Yes, the quarterback position usually on a weekly basis puts up like 20 plus points. But, you only start one quarterback in the majority of leagues. Now, again, I should say we're talking here one quarterback, your typical league, one quarterback, like 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 running backs, a flex, something like that. We're not talking 2 quarterbacks. We're not talking super flex leagues. Then it would be a different scenario. But in your standard 1 quarterback leagues, what you're giving up essentially is positions that are more valuable if you look at the positional hierarchy. The reason I say that is because you need more than 1 running back on your team. You need more than 1 wide receiver on your team. And as a result, that player pool is going to be exasperated more quickly. So as a result, you're potentially passing up on an RB1 in the third round if you draft Josh Allen at that point in time, which is, again, typically like the earliest you might see. Some people might draft him at the end of the second round. If you're drafting a quarterback, in the first round, I would strongly suggest you do not do that. I would say the people that do that are newer fantasy football players, a little bit less experienced because, in real life in the NFL, the quarterback position is the most important one. That is not the case for fantasy football. And it happens every single year, but, the name of the game for the quarterback position, I say it every single season, and I really think it holds the most truth for quarterbacks is you need to hit on the guys before they break out. You need to find that potential. And then, instead of spending a third round pick on a guy that can be a top five quarterback at his position, spending let's say a sixth or seventh or eighth round pick on him instead. Because what you've done there essentially is if you drafted, let's say, a Josh Allen in the third round, when somebody like, for example, an Ezekiel Elliott, a maybe Keenan Allen, maybe a somehow Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, something like that, all big names that have huge upside at their positions were available to you, you're going to be behind the eight ball because they are more important when it comes to the positional hierarchy. Again, I would have them as running back, wide receiver, tight end, and quarterback. And the reason for that is, again, most people only one quarterback on their team, depending on the size of your leagues. Sure, there might be backups drafted, things like that. But, 10 quarterbacks. And with the younger quarterbacks that continue to come into the league with the development they've had, and especially with some of even not that great real-life NFL quarterbacks, but huge rushing upside quarterbacks like a Jalen Hurts, a Trey Lance, that translates to fantasy success. So there's a lot more depth at that position than people realize. And that is really the core of the issue here. Because why would you draft a quarterback in the early third round, even in the second round, when you can get a guy, let's say, even looking at the same tier, like a Lamar Jackson and a Josh Allen are ranked in the same tier of quarterbacks. So basically, you expect the drop off between those guys not to be that huge. Lamar Jackson is ranked 24 spots lower than Josh Allen. So that translates into another 2 rounds. So even if you want to get a tier 1 quarterback, a top-notch quarterback, why would you do that, let's say, in the second round or third round when you can still essentially do the same thing 2 rounds later? The answer is you wouldn't. Don't get caught up just by the name. Do the research and see that the drop-off between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson shouldn't be all that much. And in fact, there's other guys on this list. I say it all the time. I have Kyler Murray as a tier 1 quarterback. That's why, it kind of pays to see where you have some of these quarterbacks ranked and not just to blindly go off the rankings of whatever platform you're using. So, okay, sure. What are the advantages to getting a quarterback early? Well, you're probably going to be getting every single week 20 points guaranteed, at least. And yes, that is valuable. But again, you are going to see a much bigger drop-off, especially at the running back position or a wide receiver position or hell, even the tight end position. If you drafted, again, in the third round versus the sixth round. In drafting in the third round, a running back that you could get there versus the running backs that are going to be available in the fifth, sixth round versus the quarterbacks that are going to be available in the fifth, sixth round versus the guy you picked in the third, like Josh Allen, it's a night and day difference because let's say you take Ezekiel Elliott in the third round at the running back position. Then in the sixth round, well, you're going to be looking at names probably like, Melvin Gordon, something like that, Rashad Penny. Those are not ideal names. Like, that's a night and day difference in terms of expectations, in terms of projections between a Ezekiel Elliott or really any of that group of third round running backs that you can get and those guys that I just mentioned. Whereas the difference between a Josh Allen and a Kyler Murray, who still has the 20 plus point upside on a week to week basis, and even like a Joe Burrow or a Jalen Hurts or a Russell Wilson or a Matthew Stafford. You see how many more names I'm naming here? It's because this quarterback position is deep. It's deep, and I feel like this year it's deeper than it's ever been. Like, I have 5 guys in the tier 1 group. So if you still think the quarterback position, you need to get a tier 1 quarterback, which isn't the case. Again, it happens every single year. Last year, I was saying go ahead and draft Justin Herbert, who was going like in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. Take your dart throw there. He was very promising his rookie season, great offense, and he could have a top 5 quarterback season. In fact, he was number 2. I said Matthew Stafford, he's a little bit older. Maybe people are disrespecting him because he was coming from Detroit, but great offense, great situation. Guy finishes as a top 6 quarterback. You got him in the double-digit rounds. Basically, continue to follow this trend because it's going to save you time in and time out. You're going to get a chance to get a guy that, okay, maybe on a week-to-week basis, he might have like 4 or 5 points lower than a Josh Allen, something like that. But he still has very, very high upside. You don't need a top 5 quarterback or top 3 quarterback, let's say, in order to be relevant in your leagues, in order to be a top-notch contender. You need basically a top 10 quarterback. Really, that's as simple as it is. And, just based on numbers, if you're in a 10-team league, I mean, as long as you pick the right guys, everyone is going to have a top 10 quarterback. In a 12-team league, almost everyone will. And again, guys like a Russell Wilson, just because, they're a little bit older, doesn't mean you shouldn't be taking a chance on them. Guys like a Matthew Stafford, again, getting a little bit disrespected. And, I think at this point, it's pretty obvious my stance on the quarterback situation. And if you haven't figured it out by now, let me summarize it. It's as follows. Quarterbacks in fantasy football should not be treated the same way they are in real life football because they are the arguably least important position unless, I guess kickers and defenses. We're not talking them there, though. We're talking quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. It's the deepest position, and the drop-off is least significant there compared to other positions. So as a result, I suggest you don't take a quarterback before the 4th, 5th round, or let's say the 4th round, early 5th round, something like that. Then, especially if tier 1 guys, which is happening this year, are available in the 5th, 6th, like a Kyler Murray, okay, you got the green light to select them. But even afterwards, if you don't have a tier 1 quarterback, wait a little bit longer. We're going to touch on some names this season that can break out and have a Matthew Stafford type of season from last year, a Justin Herbert type of season, and that way you waited, you outsmarted your competition, you loaded up on other positions like running back, wide receivers, where injuries are more common, you have more depth on your bench, etc., etc., and as a result, you have a more well-rounded team. Definitely don't draft a quarterback in the 1st round. That's not the way you want to construct your roster. If you guys have any questions when it comes to that, definitely let me hear it in the comment section. That's what I'm here for, to hopefully, help you guys have a more successful season, help you guys draft a little bit better. But as I promised, I want to throw a couple names at you here. And I've done it before in other breakdowns we've done as far as quarterbacks that I'm targeting that I think should be ranked higher. At least they are on my draft guide compared to, other analysts. So let's kind of circle a couple names. Kyler Murray is somebody that I talked about. I think, sure, he's a top 5 guy, but he should be, he has the potential to, out of all these tier 1 quarterbacks, I think he should be right there basically with like Mahomes, with Lamar Jackson. I think he's just undervalued. And yes, out of all the names that I'm going to mention, he's going to cost you the most. Other guys, Russell Wilson, he's ranked the number 10 spot. I think he has awesome upside with the Broncos, loaded offensively. And I would say out of all the names that we're going to mention here, he has the highest upside to potentially finish as a top 3 quarterback. And you can get him like in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, which is absolutely insane. We know what he can do. His resume is legit. He's got a very good rushing attack as well. This is one of the best offenses he's ever had around him. Next up, we've got Matthew Stafford here, a guy that, again, you see it here. He's ranked 85th overall. So, I mean, what does that equate to, like in the 7th, 8th round, depending on how your league values the quarterback position? Typically, he's going to go like in the 8th, 9th round. I think he can very well have a similar season to last year. He's got the weapons that are similar to last year. Offensive line has declined a little bit, but still I think he can be a top 6, top 7 quarterback. And then let's talk some other guys that I really like. Derek Carr, I absolutely love him. He's ranked 13th overall here, ranked 104th overall, so outside of the top 10 rounds, again, depending on the size of your league. I think in some leagues where people are kind of a little bit less aware of Derek Carr and the fact that he's added a weapon like Devontae Adams, he might even go undrafted, as crazy as that sound, if your league doesn't take backup quarterbacks. Trey Lance, another guy, if he plays the majority of the season with his rushing upside, is another flyer that you can take a chance on. So there's definitely a lot of names here. I mean, I just gave you 5. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Stafford, Derek Carr, Trey Lance. So the options are there. I'd suggest you guys go that route. It'll help you overall build a better, more quality team. But let me know whether you agree or disagree in the comment section. That's what videos like these are for, to have a discussion, to hopefully inform everybody involved, including myself. If you guys have any other questions, again, let me hear them. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. Let me know if you enjoyed, this type of video. And then again, make sure to check out the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Details in the description. In the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.